Greetings and welcome back to what is going to be the last episode of Modeling on the Fly with 3ds Max for this particular project. Here we're going to go ahead and wrap up the AT-AT walker, and I'm going to do that by simplifying what's going on the underside of the walker itself. Now that doesn't mean you have to. If you're following along and you really want to take the amount of detail visible underneath this beast, and you want to push that off to the next level and beyond, then by all means, go right ahead. Personally, I don't think it's something we're going to spend a lot of time looking at, and so I am not going to make it particularly detailed. But let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I want to do is get into a position where we can get the legs out of the way. So currently, our legs are in these nice convenient groups. So I'm going to grab all of these, and I'm going to put these into a brand new group, which I will simply call legs group. Now the cool thing about doing that is that the center of the X translate should be at 0, 0, so we can just go ahead and grab this and slide it out of the way. Now the first thing I'm going to do when I get in here, let's go ahead and press F4 so I can see my wires. I'm going to grab the faces of this underside plate that we just finished putting together in the last video. I'm going to slide this up even higher. Give me some more room to work with here. Now, if it protrudes through, which we can see it doing here, then we need to make some changes. And it looks like I accidentally slid it forward, so make sure it just goes up. If it starts to show through, just scale it down a little bit. Now, if the bounding box shows through, of course, that doesn't matter. So we'll go ahead and leave it alone right about here. Now, I need something for these drive pieces to connect into. So let's start with just a simple box. So for now, I'm going to grab a box, turn on auto grid, and let's just drag something out that fits in right about here. Not too worried about how much height it has just yet. We'll get to that. But let's go ahead and center it up, so we know it's dead smack in the middle of our AT-AT walker. Go over and change its settings around a little bit. And I'm going to make this quite a bit taller. Then let's go back to create. I'm going to make another box. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit to make this one. We're going to surround this little pylon and then add a little bit of height. So something kind of like that, where we have this special piece that comes down and connects right into where that engine's pylon connects in. And I'm going to hold down Shift. Well, actually, let's not make a copy of that just yet. I'll clean up its shape before we do that. So our great big box that we just finished up, let's take the width of that and I'll push it out. Can we push it all the way out to here without it sticking through? It looks like we can. And I'd like to go ahead and do that. And I'll convert this over to an editable poly. Switch over to edges. Actually, let's start with faces first, or polygons anyway. And let's grab these edges. Now I'll grab the 4 on the outsides. Like so. And let's go ahead and give these a bit of a chamfer, just to give that something a little cleaner. Now I'm going to try to center this up in the forward and backward directions as well. So let's get out of editable poly mode, and I'll slide this up. I'm kind of centering it on this little extruded piece of armor here. So it just kind of hides right back there. Now the underside, if we were to take a look at some pictures, and we've got some detail here. Now this is going to be largely simplified, though this is a pretty good reference pick if you want to make something that's a bit more finely detailed. Actually, this is an indication right here. We've got this main part of the body, which is primarily cylindrical, and we want to make sure that that is present in our design. So I'm going to start just by making the frontal piece. So let's go over here to create. Let's grab a cylinder. And auto grid is still on. I'm going to draw this right on the front of our initial box. And we'll give it a little bit of height. Switch over to the move tool. It's centered up in X. We'll slide it up in Z. And now let's play with its settings a bit. So we'll start off with its height, run its height all the way out here till it connects with this front wall. Let's increase the radius, which will lead us to slide it up a little bit further. We get something about like so. Now, if you really want to detail this and start adding some things without seeing too much nickeling, it makes sense to add some more sides. I'm going to jump this up to about 36 sides. And then once that's done, let's move our time slider to make everything transparent. Let's convert this over to an editable poly. I have these 5 height segments. In fact, let me pull those down. I'm actually going to get rid of my height segments. I will be adding some, but I just want to add them manually. We'll go ahead and convert this over. Let's grab polygons. And what I want to do is grab any polygons that are not visible, which is to right about up here, and we'll just delete those out. So what we end up with is just this curved piece of polygonal shell. Now let's jump over to edges. I'll go ahead and shade everything back in so we can see what's going on here. Looks like the whole thing could stand to be slid upward just a hair further. There we go. Now let's grab an edge here. We'll ring this. Let's do a connection. And let's say we connect this twice. Will probably work just fine. So click OK. Let's run a chamfer on those pieces. Say to about here. Click OK. Let's grab an edge on the inside of each one. And we will ring those. Convert over to polygons, and we'll do a small bevel by local normal. And that'll just be like a first level of simple detail that we can add. Now I'm going to grab edges here on the far end of this guy. Let's loop these around, and I'll slide these back into our actual block body back here. Now let's start adding some detail. Now again, I'm going to be very heavily simplifying things, although I'm not really forcing anybody else to do that. Let's start off with some chamfer boxes. Save some time. And auto grid is still on, so I'll draw one right in here a little bit. If it pokes through a few things, that's okay with me. Now we don't need quite so many chamfer edges, so let's take our fillet segs and pull those down to 1. And I'll slide this up into the shape a little bit. And we can make some duplicates of this and change its parameters to get some different looks. So we can increase the width, pull down the length, and yeah, it seems to connect through, which I'm actually okay with in this particular case. There we go. Now if we go back over to the chamfer box, we can make a thinner one right about here. And we'll slide that back in. Let's do another one of those down here someplace so that we can say we've got some sort of a hatch that Luke could, cut open with his lightsaber and toss a grenade up into. Like that great episode of Robot Chicken where they got the stormtrooper sitting on the commode and he sees a grenade come up through. And let's see. Now, I'm going to cheat a little bit. Let's grab some pieces we've already made. Like here, we've got this great big purple cylinder we just finished working on. Let's copy this back to here. Click OK. Now, how far back can I drag that before it sticks through? Looks like I can go kind of far with it. Not too much further than that, though. Say to about there. Then I'm going to switch to edges. We'll grab this frontal edge. Let's loop that around. I'll shift drag a copy out like so. Then immediately I'm going to fix my smoothing group issue. And 45 is a bit much, so let's pull that down to about 20. And auto smooth. Let's grab edges here, which we will then loop around. Let's chamfer. Click OK. Grab here, switch over to a ring, control click, and I didn't really want to extrude that, I want to bevel that, and just one click bevel should take care of it. Okay, and it looks like we've got somebody who's floating over here. I need to keep that in mind that he's not a part of a leg group, because he's probably I suppose he would be part of some group for the legs, but I only see the one, so that's interesting. I'm talking about this little floating yellow cylinder here. I don't really know why he's there. Let's just pretend he needs to be there for now, which means let's ignore him. Alright, now, let's see here. I've got some pieces that I'm just going to start salvaging from all over the place and dropping down for decoration. So let's grab one of these vents, and we'll use our normal align to slap it down. So click you, put you right about here, and that almost worked. Let's see, if we zero this out, and we zero this out, part of the problem here is that the normals on this are all rounded. So if we convert this over to an editable poly, and then grab the element and just clear out all the smoothing groups, then it suddenly becomes easier to position this guy because it's using that normal information for placement. Now we can take our rotations, zero out any of the weird, really strange ones, and set this guy over to just negative 180. There we go. Oh, fine. And I'm going to slide this back up into the body like so. Alright. So there's a little vent piece there. Now there's all kinds of other things that we can lift and borrow and steal and whatnot. Like, we got this really great piece here for this hinge that was made into one great big polygon shape. Let's grab this and make a copy of it. And I'm going to check it out up close. We've got a nice polygon on the back that we can use to handle for normal alignment. And let's see, we could tack that right there. Click OK. And what I'm going to do is just make a second copy right there. And we've got these cool radio pieces up here. I don't know why I call those radio pieces. They just look like radios to me. You got the two knobs. And I'm going to tack that right here. Slide this down a little bit, scoot it over. I'm going to scale it up. And I'll just shift drag a copy over here. Now let's see, we can go back to our chamfer box and let's draw one right in here for a little bit of inside detail. And we've got this vent. Let's have a couple more of these. Right here. That's some great rotation. And just fit that in like so. Now let's see, what else we got? What else can I borrow? What about this guy? If I get all of these little pieces here, and we group those together, And let's just call this radiator greeble group, because to me it looks like some sort of a radiator. And make a copy of that. Now let's grab our little normal align tool. Grab, say, that face right there. Fly back around to the underside. And let's put this guy right here. And we'll scale him up a little bit. Now we do have that one kind of tube-like piece that goes over here. Also, we've got this little extension we made. I'm going to actually slide this over to the opposite side. So we're kind of building everything on one side of the walker, and then we can just mirror it all over in one go. Let's convert this over to an editable poly. I'm going to grab faces. I'll grab this top face, convert it over to edges, switch over to edges, and grab these guys at the corners. There we go. Come here, you. And do a quick chamfer. That works there. We've got this funny little tube piece. In fact, if we take a look at the pictures, that guy. Let's put that in, then we can stick a vent halfway through it and get something pretty close. We'll go back to standard primitives. Let's grab a tube, and I'll just draw it in here. A little bit of height. Let's see, we don't need that much height, so we'll pull that back down. We don't need the extra height segments, so we'll go ahead and remove those. We can grab our little radiator here. Rotate this around about 90 degrees. In fact, let's turn on rotation snapping. Zero that out. So zeroing out an X won't help unless we center its pivot. So let's center it up. Then zero out its X. Translate, frame up on it. Let's slide it down through the object a bit. And then I'll just scale it up to fit all the way through. That's actually kind of neat that that worked. Alright, and what else? Really, I mean, I'm just kind of making this up as I go, as I'm sure you have caught on at this point. So let's do a couple of other quick things, and then I'm going to kind of move away from it and leave that extra layer of detail up to you if you would like to really push it any further. Let's grab this guy, cap it off. Get out of editable poly mode. Let's borrow this, and we're going to stick it right there. Okay, there we go. Now, let's see. There was something else I wanted to do here. Let's grab this guy. Now, these are all mirrored over in a really odd kind of way, which is alright. For the most part, that doesn't bother me, but we do need to kind of fix it if I want to borrow just one of them. So let's see. I'll just start over here on this side. Let's grab this guy. Let's get elements, and we've already got the opposite element selected, so we'll remove that. Let's get the next one. Switch to elements, and we need to make sure that we just get the element selected and not the face over here on this side of it, so we'll remove that. And this guy, again, switch to elements. remove. Now let's take the whole thing and we'll group it. Let's call this Greeble1 group, because I don't really know what to call this piece, but I want to use it anyway. And we're going to grab normal align, and we'll stick this right about here. Click OK. Let's frame up on it, and that'll probably work. If you really, really wanted to, you could take the group and explode it, and then go to scale, and maybe scale the whole thing up a little ways. Let's see, if we rotate locally, we could also, here, let's take this, we could rotate the whole thing around. Actually, let's go by the, selection center is going to do some interesting things like that. We don't necessarily want that. Well, if we did that, we could always just slide everything back into place. But if I flip this around, then we can make it look kind of like a different piece just by changing its orientation. At least so that people can't get a quite as direct comparison from one piece to the other. So let's see, if we move this guy locally, we can slide him back over here. Slide this one back over here. Also, let's do a couple of other cool things. Let's make... Yeah, I got an idea. Let's make a capsule. Do extended primitives. Let's see here. Grab a capsule. Make a really long capsule shape. Let's rotate it, and we're going to rotate this locally, 90 degrees. And we do that so that it will lay nicely along the side of our shape here. And it's currently sticking through that. I thought I didn't want that, but after seeing it like that, I think I'm going to use it like that. So let's go ahead and do something kind of like so. Now switch over to the rotate tool, and we'll change our reference coordinate system over to pick and grab this cylinder. So now we can rotate. If we switch over to transform coordinate center, we can rotate about that. Let's go ahead and turn off our snapping for a moment. And I'll get this right about here. Now, let's shift drag a copy out like so. And let's make a whole bunch of these. Let's say, I don't know, how far did we go? We went 2 degrees to go around 180 would require about, well, if you round that up to 3, it would require 60 of them. So what happens if we do 60? We go all the way and then some, which is fine. Let's go ahead and shade everything down so we can get any extras. And we have more than we need. Excuse me. And that's okay. I'd rather remove those than have to go back and try to rotate by 2.71 all over again. And if we shade everything back down, we can see all these guys. Now let's see, if I make a marquee selection that was very carefully placed right about here, and then systematically deselect things like that, and that guy, let's go back over to view, and it looks like that's all I have selected, which is great. Let's see if we can just take these guys, and then we'll shift slide them all back over here. Make a second copy, click OK. So now that adds a lot more detail to that area. It looks like I put this guy exactly on the wrong side that I want him to be on, so I'm going to grab him, grab all 3 of these guys, switch over to world, and then we'll mirror. I'm not going to copy, so we're just going to put everything over on the one side for now. Now, let's get some of these details that we've created up here at the front and make copies of them for the back as well. So we'll just shift drag these guys back here, click OK, Shift drag this back, click OK. All right. And drag this guy back to here. And it looks like I right-clicked, which I didn't want to do, so you and put you right there. Click OK. Scale that up a little bit. And then, whoops, didn't want to do that. We'll sink this right into the cylinder there. And you could really go on and on and on and on, adding tons and tons and tons of detail if you felt like it. Again, I wanted this to remain fairly simple. If for no other reason, then it's not something that I'm expecting to be focused pretty heavily on. If you're just a perfectionist and you just really are going to feel better knowing that you've made exactly the same thing that was in the movie, then I encourage you to take the time and look at tons of reference data and put it all together. At this point, I would go so far as to say we've done quite enough of that. That you would at least get the point on how, like, some of the many ways in which you could create such greebled shapes. So let's grab all this stuff, switch back over to world, reference coordinate center. Let's do a mirror with copy on. So now we have a second set completely underneath. We need to grab these little pink blocks here. And let's shift slide these back to fit underneath the other pylons for the rear engine. And I'm going to grab the legs and just zero out their X translation, and there we go. The last thing I want to do is do one great big marquee selection. So I'm just going to hit Q. Let's just get everybody. I'm going to make sure my modeling material is applied all the way around. Then I'll press F4, and we can take a look underneath and see how things are. Now, that already shows a nice bit of detail. You know, if you have some lighting, then you've already got a nice way to see everything that's going on and see all that in shadow. So I think that's going to work out really well. At this stage of the game, it'd be a good time to go through and make any adjustments that you need to. Wow, that's really cool. Apparently this guy got duplicated back or copied. So let's make sure that we remove that guy. And you can see we've got some guys poking through, so we need to make sure we clean that up. So you want to look for any funny little errors that may be coming through. Something I noticed earlier, and if you have something similar on your end that you want to fix, here's how you can do it. You'll see that the grooves that I've cut in up here, for some reason, just look really over the top. Like, for whatever reason, I just kind of pushed those a little too hard. Oh, and that needs to go away. So, to fix these, I'm going to grab this object. Let's switch over to faces. Now, I'm going to have polygons selected. We're going to select by about 10 degrees, give or take. And this gives us everybody inside here. Now, I'm also going to control select the faces at the bottom of this groove as well. And we'll slide these up just a little bit. Say to right about here. That looks pretty good. Then I'm going to grow them just once and slide these up a little bit. You got to be really careful with how you do that as well. And that makes the whole thing look a little less deep, so it's not quite as deeply cut into the surface. And anywhere you need to do that, and you could do it here, just make sure, like if you did it here on the side, that you were moving in local space. Now, that pretty much wraps up all the modeling that I want to do to this AT-AT walker. If you'd like to do more and push areas of detail or make modifications or make changes, you're welcome to it. But I think at this point we've got something that a viewer would recognize from really any angle as exactly what it was we're trying to create. So I'm going to call this successful at this point. The last thing I'm going to show you, and this is only for those of you who don't know. So if you already know how to do this and you don't want to be bothered by watching a video, that's fine. I'm going to show you how to do a real quick light tracer clay render. If you just are fairly new to Macs and you've never seen one of these before, or you've seen them and don't know how to do them, here's a really quick and easy way to set them up. And I may have already shown you this, so if I have and I've forgotten, then I apologize. But it is a nice way to kind of wrap up a modeling project. So let's go create some sort of a floor. I'll go to standard primitives and let's just place a plane. Drop that down and let's slide it down underneath the feet. You don't want the object to appear like it's hovering, but if you've got just a little bit of a gap between the bottom of your feet and your object, that's generally going to be alright. As long as the gap is pretty small. So we'll center that up. Next, go to create lights. You want to grab a skylight. And I have auto grid on, so I'm just going to click and place that here on the floor. And we'll tell it to cast shadows. I'm just going to switch that on, which we probably don't even need to do, but I'm going to do it anyway. Let's go over to our rendering settings. Let's grab advanced lighting, make sure we switch on light tracer. I'm not going to worry about any of the settings. I'm just turning this on for a real quick render. Get a nice pose of your model that you like, and just because I'm picky, I'm going to take my floor and make it a dark gray. Actually, let's do a darker gray. And then I'm going to darken up our modeling material just a hair to get a little bit better contrast. And let's give this a quick render. Now, this is going to take just a moment, so once the render actually gets started, then it's gonna, we're gonna get our nice little scan lines. You'll know you've done it right because it takes an extra second to get down to here. And this is where you track ahead on your video. You grab the little track bar and slide it forward just a second, which I totally understand. And we're going to get to the detail in those cannons, and Max is going to go, okay, hang on just a second. And it's working pretty fast, actually. So I think that is going to be the point where we start to speed up a little bit. Here come the underside of the legs. And yes, I know, the feet technically cannot be positioned like this. Not if the thing was really standing there, but it works for our model's sake. And there we are. So we have a really quick clay render of our model. You can try this from multiple angles, and clay renders tend to make just about any model look really good. So feel free to have some fun with that. However, that is going to wrap things up for this episode of Modeling on the Fly with 3ds Max. It's also going to wrap up the modeling of the AT-AT for this series. So I want to thank you all for watching and send a big thanks out to all of our member sponsors who make all of this possible. And I will catch you all on a future video.